وسلم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. First of all, I'd like to begin by saying, Ramadan Mubarak and Ramadan Kareem to our beautiful community. It is an honor to be giving a short Khātirah for the community today. And I'd like to say, I'm very happy this year to have, had the honor and the ability, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed us to return to the masajid and to be able to meet with our friends and family. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to continue to do so, and may He lift this burden of COVID-19, and may He lift this test of COVID-19. I hope that you guys can see me and that this is working. I'm just kind of hoping that it is. I don't really see any. I'm on another platform here called StreamYard that Mufti Saab set up, so I hope everything is good. But I'm just going to say Bismillah and hope things are working just fine. So the reminder that I'd like to give today is something that I'd like to start off with. And I apologize that yesterday we weren't able to do a quick reminder. The reason for it was, I was busy with some family. For you may have received the message that my dear uncle Ayub, his father passed away a few days ago, and his sister also passed away a few days ago. So please make generous dua throughout this month for the family, and please keep us in your duas. I'd like to begin this short reminder with the intention of personally myself, it being a reminder of becoming a better person this Ramadan. And I pray that we make this one of the best Ramadans that we ever have. One thing that I always find interesting is in the past, especially when I was younger, I would often meet people who didn't do anything all throughout the whole year with regards to extra prayer or ibadah or going to the masjid. But then in Ramadan, you would see the masajid come to life. You would see people, packed in Jummah on the 27th night and the last odd nights of Ramadan. You would see everyone at the masjid. And on Eid, you would see everybody at the Eid prayer that you'd never seen before. What my friends and I, and many folks used to call, Ramadan Muslims. But I realize as I begin to learn more that, this is really a foolish thing to say, because as I learn more, to a degree, we all need to be Ramadan Muslims, right? We all should treat this month differently than other months, right? Because what it signals to me about Ramadan Muslims is that inside of the hearts of all of the people in Ramadan that come alive is that it's a signal of Iman. And as a reminder, as we're going through Surah Al-Baqarah, for most of us as we begin the Quran this Ramadan, there's an ayat of Surah Al-Baqarah that I'd like to recite. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ثم قست قلوبكم من بعد ذلك فهي كالحجارة أو أشد قسوة وإن من الحجارة لما يتفجر منه الأنهار وإن منها لما يشقق فيخرج منه الماء وإن منها لما يهبط من خشية الله وما الله بغافل عما تعملون. That in spite of this, your hearts only harden like rocks or even harder. But among rocks are those from which rivers flow, and there are also those which split open and water gushes forth, as well as those that roll down for fear of Allah. And Allah is not negligent of all that you do. Now, although that there's a little bit more to the tafsir of this ayat, right? What it reminded me of specifically as I read it is that among rocks, and in this ayat is not, it's not specifically referring to water, right? It's meant to be a metaphor for Iman, that there are rocks uh, from which iman can. There are people from which iman can flow, and there are also that flows very easily, and there are some that require it to be split open, and there are others from which which fall down in fear of Allah. Now, I don't want to get into the deep tafsir of this, but what I'd like to comment and what it reminded me of is that there are many, many people who, although they might not be as pious as other people, for example, like myself, I'm not very pious throughout the year, but in Ramadan, I get this energy, this vigor that comes to life that, makes me want to do more. And so this is a reminder that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings forth this, that people are different, and iman is still there. And so for people that know me well, one of the things that I stress often, and what I have talked about and spoken about for many, many years now, is something that's very deeply lacking in the world today. And it's the focus that we have lost on our connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the deep focus that we've lost on iman. Now, if throughout my college years, throughout my years of working, I have tackled issues of modernity, to issues with regards to, I have a number of individuals I've worked with that have left the deen, and very few people who I've met that have left the deen do so because of an intellectual problem. Right? They oftentimes, right, they are not intellectually very savvy, but it comes due to some other reason, and that reason is because people have a rust over their hearts, because we have become accustomed to trying to find the easy way out of almost everything. And the deen requires mujahada, it requires work, it requires some level of difficulty. And by this, I don't mean some weird esoteric idea of some Sufi cult. What it means is that when you don't do something, even in the real world, if you don't exercise, if you don't work out, if you constantly just eat junk food, if you constantly just you're very sedentary, you don't move around, you don't eat healthy food, you constantly look for the easy way out with regards to your physical fitness, your health, and you don't want to do anything, what's going to happen to you? You're going to be sick in all sorts of physical ways. You're going to be lethargic throughout the day. You're going to have the inability, you're not going to have the ability to be able to do many things physically, and it will lead to your death, right? To be very blunt, if you constantly take the easy way out in your physical life, you're going to lead to a very sick and diseased body. Now, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he gave us a course, a regimen of vigor and work, right? That he has instructed all of us, that we have to do mujahada with our own nafs. That if we constantly look for the easy way out of doing things, it will create a rust. It will create a dot on the heart, and that dot and that rust will envelop the heart and lead to our spiritual death. Now, what does this mean? Because it's Ramadan, and it's the best time of the year to be able to remove this rust on our heart. Now, what is the heart? By heart, we don't mean our physical heart, the one that pumps blood through our arteries. What we're talking about is the spiritual apparatus. We're talking about the spiritual heart, the metaphysical heart. It Just as we have a tongue which allows us to recite Surah Fatiha in Salah, just as we have limbs and feet that allow us to stand in prayer and perform sujood, just as we have ears to listen to the Quran, just as we have an intellect and an aql to be able to know what time Maghrib is to be able to open the fast, in the same way, there is another organ we know of, that is the heart. The heart is the spiritual apparatus which allows us to connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the world of the metaphysical. And so the proliferation of all of these fitan, all of these things in front of you that are outside in terms of fitna, that are outside in terms of distractions, things beeping in front of you, chiming in front of you. I just received a notification as I'm speaking right in front of me. Media, entertainment, everything is prevalent. And it's a very difficult time to be able to focus your heart upon that which is healthy for us. And so, the ulama, they study overseas, and they study not overseas, that's not what I meant. They study for very deeply many texts of knowledge. And they study these things deeply, and many times they come back to local communities, and they're giving a talk on the fiqh of food, or the fiqh of something that, when compared to their advanced level of knowledge, seems very simple. Now, the reason isn't because, they're trying to be the Biha Nazis, or tell you, don't do this or don't do that. It's because they're stressing the issue that the actual violation of something isn't the problem, isn't the biggest problem. Sure, you will be sinful if you don't eat the Biha food, for example. But that's not the problem. The real problem is the rust that forms slowly upon the heart when you commit sins, when you do things wrong. And if you poison the well, if you poison the thing that will allow you to be that will be the tool, the spiritual apparatus by which you are able to connect to Allah, when the rains of mercy and the rains come down from Allah, they won't be able to reach you. And so it's important that we take this month, that we take this time to remove the rust from our hearts. And the best way to do so is dhikrullah. And the best form of dhikr is Quran. And so throughout this month, as many of us are already doing, engage with the Quran. Read the Quran and ponder it deeply. And if you're not reading Quran, engage in the dhikr of Allah. There's many people, especially my generation, I know my parents' generation and the generation before us, they engaged in copious amounts of dhikr. Whenever dhikr is mentioned in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always mentions kathiran, right? But do it more, in excess. And so we should increase in our dhikr. And I will tell you that there was a time a few years ago where one of my teachers, he instructed me to sit and do a certain regimen of dhikr for a few hours every day for a certain period of time. And I can't tell you if there was ever a time before that in my life where I had actually done that, right? For example, the dhikr of La ilaha illallah, just sit quietly, face the qibla, focus on the words La ilaha illallah, or the salawat, Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad, and do this dhikr. And notice the rust fall off of your heart, because that will allow you to be able to receive the gifts from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I think with that, let us conclude for the evening. Inshallah, please enjoy iftar with your families, and please keep myself and the Islamic Center of South Jersey in your du'as. I will say one short, quick reminder, if anybody is listening, for Taraweeh signups, if you have already signed up for Taraweeh and you are not going to attend tonight or any other night throughout the week that you've registered for, please make sure you go in and reschedule or cancel your reservation so that you don't take up a spot that somebody else already has. So with that, inshallah, I will conclude. Jazakallahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.